Imagine this. It's Monday morning. You're staring at your calendar, calls, deadlines, a partner meeting you're dreading. But this time something feels different. You didn't wake up in a panic. You're not reaching for your phone before you've even taken a breath. Instead, you take one, a deep one. You ask yourself what you need today, and you actually listen. You go into that meeting. The partner challenges your strategy. Your heart races a little, but you don't shrink. You speak your truth, not because you're trying to be liked, but because you trust yourself to handle pushback. Later, an email comes in with unexpected edits. Normally, this would derail your whole night. But you pause. You decide you're logging off at 6, and you do. You make dinner. You laugh with someone you love. You rest without guilt. You're not perfect, but you're present. And at the center of it all is the quiet, steady belief that you've got your own back. That's self-trust. And it changes everything. And today, we're going to talk about how you can start building that for yourself. Welcome to the Lawyer Burnout Solution, the podcast for female attorneys who want to stay in the careers they've worked so hard to build without running themselves into the ground. I'm Heather Mills, and every week, I'll share the tools, strategies, and mindset shifts you need to reclaim your energy, confidence, and career. Before we dive in, I want to say, this episode is a vulnerable one for me. Not because I'm unsure of the message, but because self-trust is something I had to fight to rebuild in my own life. For a long time, I didn't even know I'd lost it. I just thought I was the problem. I'm sharing this because I know so many of you have felt the same way. So much of what I share today comes from my own healing and from the brave, powerful women who I work with who are doing this work too. So what is self-trust? It isn't just confidence. It's the felt belief that you can make decisions that are right for you. You can handle whatever comes your way. You can do it all while staying on your own side. It's about emotional regulation, inner safety, and quiet loyalty to yourself, not perfection, certainty, or performance. Self-trust means you have your own back, that when things go sideways or when you make a mistake, you won't spiral into self-criticism or collapse into shame. You'll meet yourself with care, with compassion, with curiosity. It means you don't rely on certainty or external validation to move forward. You trust yourself to respond to life as it unfolds. This is especially important in law, where perfectionism and performance are often mistaken for strength. Self-trust is a different kind of strength. It's quieter, more rooted, but infinitely more sustainable. And self-trust isn't a fixed kind of thing. It's a muscle you can build. It isn't something you either have or don't. It's something you can grow. I know this not just as a coach, but as someone who had to rebuild her own. There were years where I didn't trust my own judgment, when I second-guessed everything, overthought everything, and looked to everyone else for answers. And I've seen the same in my clients. I've watched women lawyers who came in full of self-doubt slowly build back trust in their own voice, their choices, their worth. It's absolutely possible. So if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, if your inner critic has been running your life, or if you've stopped believing that your instincts are trustworthy, that doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means you're ready to rebuild. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. So what happens when you don't trust yourself? Burnout is often the symptom. Have you ever noticed how burnout makes you question every decision? But the root, more often than not, it's a loss of belief in yourself. And it can happen through our social conditioning, or maybe something bigger happening in your life has triggered it, like a loss of a loved one, or divorce, even a bad performance review or a tough project. When you don't trust yourself, every decision feels like a trap. You outsource your worth to other people's opinions. You become paralyzed by perfectionism or people-pleasing. You abandon your needs to maintain the illusion that you got it all together. And here's where it gets even trickier for women lawyers. We're rewarded for these behaviors. We're praised for how much we take on, how selfless we are, how buttoned up we seem, even when we're crumbling on the inside. Self-doubt gets baked into our training. In law school, in firms, in courtrooms, we're taught to defer to precedent, to hierarchy, to authority. We become experts in picking apart arguments and finding what's missing, which means we're trained to apply the same scrutiny to ourselves. Add in a culture that rewards overfunctioning and punishes vulnerability, and it's no wonder we start to distrust our own instincts. So we compensate, we overprepare, we overdeliver. We try to become so perfect that no one could possibly criticize us. But perfection doesn't lead to peace. It leads to paralysis. And eventually, we burn out, not just because we're tired, but because we've lost our inner compass. We're constantly scanning outside of ourselves for cues. Am I doing it right? Am I enough? What do they think? When you don't trust yourself, you hand over your inner authority. You outsource your peace, and you stay stuck in a cycle that keeps reinforcing your doubt. But it doesn't have to stay that way. The path forward isn't about proving yourself. It's about rebuilding your relationship with yourself. How did we lose our self-trust in the first place? Self-trust doesn't just vanish, but it does erode slowly, quietly over time. It breaks when you're praised for being the good girl, the overachiever, the one who never needs anything. It breaks when you're taught that pleasing others is safer than honoring your own truth. It breaks every time you override your intuition because someone else knows better. In the legal profession, this breakdown gets reinforced at every level. In law school, you learn to defer to precedent, to authority, to external benchmarks of success. I mentioned this earlier. And in firms, you're rewarded for overfunctioning and discouraged from expressing vulnerability. And if you're in a courtroom, every decision feels like it's high stakes, and the cost of making a mistake feels unbearably high. And over time, this culture of high control and low compassion trains you to ignore your own internal signals. You stop asking, what do I need? And start asking, what will they think? Even outside of work, it doesn't stop. Many of us grew up in families or communities, cultures where self-trust wasn't modeled, where being agreeable or high-performing was equated with worth. And let's not ignore the bigger picture. Patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism all benefit when women doubt themselves. And I think that recognizing this is the first step to reclaiming your power. Because a woman who doubts herself is easier to overwork and underpay, easier to silence, easier to control. Patriarchy thrives when we overfunction and never feel like enough. White supremacy thrives when women of color internalize the message that they have to prove their worth to belong. And capitalism, it profits from the self-doubt we all have, because when you're convinced you're not enough, you'll keep striving, spending, and sacrificing to earn approval that should have been yours from the start. Rebuilding self-trust isn't just personal. It's cultural, it's systemic, it's an act of reclamation. So how do we build this self-trust? How do we rebuild self-trust? One of my mentors, psychologist Cheryl Paul, she teaches that self-trust is made up of two things: self-awareness and self-love. And I have found that to be profoundly true. But in my work with women lawyers, I've also found there's a third piece we can't ignore: self-acceptance. Because it's one thing to see yourself clearly, and even to love parts of yourself. But if you're rejecting your flaws, your messiness, your human moments, that trust doesn't hold. So to me, real self-trust is built on all three. First, self-awareness. knowing your history, your patterns, your needs, and how you've been shaped. Second, self-love, seeing yourself with affection, warmth, and care. Third, self-acceptance, embracing your imperfections and sticking with yourself through the hard stuff. Self-awareness, self-love, and self-acceptance, these are your foundation. Together, they create the kind of deep trust that can't be shaken by one bad day or one piece of feedback or one messy mistake. This isn't just about mindset. It's about how you relate to yourself over time. Do you treat yourself like someone who deserves grace? Do you listen to your own voice, even when it goes against what's expected? Do you keep showing up for yourself, especially when things are hard? This is the foundation we build everything else on. Without self-trust, every new tool or strategy feels like just another thing to get right. But when you have self-trust, you have an anchor, a center, a place to return to when the world gets loud and hard and messy. And when self-trust is there, it changes how you move through your day and your entire career. Let's talk about what self-trust looks like in the day-to-day life of a woman lawyer. It's the quiet power of waking up and checking in with yourself before you check your email. It's saying no to a last-minute request because you know your limits. It's honoring your limits without guilt and setting boundaries, not to push people away, but because your well-being matters too. It's making decisions without needing 10 people to confirm them from the start. You start trusting your gut more and Googling your decisions slightly less. It's walking into a partner meeting or courtroom with steady nerves, not because you've controlled every variable, but because you trust yourself to navigate whatever comes. And when something goes sideways, you don't weaponize your mistakes. You meet yourself with curiosity and care instead of criticism. You rest, you recover, you guide yourself with steadiness, not shame. This is what self-trust makes possible. Not perfection, but that grounded, sustainable presence. And it's something you can rebuild, one small choice at a time. This isn't about a quick mindset hack or repeating affirmations in the mirror. It's a layered, ongoing process that invites you to relate to yourself in a new way. And here's where I start with my clients. Number 1, regulate your nervous system and tend to what you're feeling now. We don't start with visioning or goal setting because when you're deep in burnout, clarity is the last thing you have. Instead, we start by making it safe to feel again, safe to slow down, safe to notice. I use something I call the matrix healing method, a process that helps you process the stress, grief, and fear that comes up in burnout. It helps you slow down, tune in, and create emotional safety so that self-trust can take root. This is part of the work I do inside the Clarity Catalyst method, my 12-week coaching program for women lawyers recovering from burnout. And number 2, rewrite the beliefs that got wired in during burnout. Burnout embeds beliefs like, I can't trust myself. My needs don't matter. I have to earn rest. Thought work, especially using a tool I teach that helps you walk through your thoughts, I call it the T practice. This helps you rewire the beliefs that keep burnout in place. It's a way to shift your internal patterns, not just intellectually, but emotionally and behaviorally. So shifting your emotions and your actions as well. The third thing that helps you build self-trust is to develop your loving inner parent. Self-trust doesn't grow in a shame storm. It grows when you relate to yourself with compassion, consistency, and warmth. And maybe you've never had that from others or from yourself. And when you do, it makes an incredible difference. That voice becomes the one thing you turn to when things get hard, not the inner critic. The fourth thing that helps you build self-trust is to connect with your true self. For me, I call this part of me my warrior goddess. You're going to have another name for it, but this is your deepest, wisest part of you. She's not the voice of fear or control. She's the one who reminds you that you're already worthy, and you always were. This inner connection becomes your anchor when doubt creeps in. The fifth way to build self-trust then is, after you've done that work, identify what you actually want. Only once you've rebuilt some emotional safety can you start to ask the question, what do I want? Not what you think you should want, not what your firm, your mentors, your resume say you should want, but what you want. Ask yourself, what would I do if I didn't have to please anyone else? Getting clear on your own desires is a key step in reestablishing that internal compass. And number 6, practice. Self-trust isn't a destination. It's a daily habit. It's choosing over and over again to come back to yourself, to pause before reacting, to ask, what do I need right now? And to honor the answer. This work doesn't require perfection. That doesn't exist. I get off track all the time, but I just come back to that inner loving parent, or I come back to the warrior goddess, my true self. It just requires a willingness to be in relationship with yourself, one decision at a time. And if you're thinking, okay, that sounds nice, but it also sounds a bit much or hard, I would say you're not wrong. That's why so many of us stay in burnout, because self-abandonment is easier than self-trust, at least at first. But I promise you, once you start, the momentum builds. And you start to feel what it's like to live from your center. So if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but how do I start today? Here's your invitation. Notice one moment, just one, where you trust yourself. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting, or taking a real lunch break, or turning down a meeting you don't need to attend, or speaking a truth that's hard but honest. Whatever it is, notice it, name it, celebrate it. Self-trust is built in moments like these, not in the big dramatic choices, but in the quiet ones that say, I matter. My voice matters. I'm listening. You can write it down or keep a note in your phone, write it in a journal. Start collecting these micro moments of self-trust, like breadcrumbs back to yourself. If this episode resonates with you, if you know that self-trust is the piece you've been missing in burnout recovery, I'd love to support you. Inside the Clarity Catalyst method, this is the work we do, rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself by strengthening your self-trust. If you're curious, head to the show notes to book a free 20-minute breakthrough call. We'll talk about where you're stuck, what's keeping you there, and how you can start to feel like yourself again on your terms. You don't have to figure it out alone. And you don't have to earn your way back to yourself. You just have to start walking, one moment at a time. Self-trust isn't a finish line. It's a relationship, a way of being with yourself that gets stronger every time you choose your own voice, your own pace, your own worthiness. And when you rebuild that relationship, everything really does change. Your work feels different. Your boundaries feel different. Your sense of self becomes something you carry with you, not something you hustle to prove. Thanks for listening. Thanks for showing up for yourself in this way. If this episode resonates with you, leave a review, share it with another lawyer who needs to hear it. And if you're ready for the next step, find the link to book your free breakthrough call in the show notes. Remember to be kind to yourself this week. I'll see you next time.